What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Restoration with Vic. Today we got these Air Jordan 4 Doernbechers from my buddy Jay Collector. These honestly aren't that bad. He did a great job of taking care of these. The paint on this midsole is notorious for cracking, so we gotta take care of that. Same thing with the sock liners. They're pretty dingy. We gotta clean that up. One thing I get asked non-stop is how to properly tape up a shoe before a midsole repaint. I'm gonna go in depth and show you guys how to avoid getting any paint on the uppers, crispy lines all around, and know what tape to use. So without further ado, let's get it started. First things first, we're gonna put this shoe to the side for before and after purposes. Next, we're gonna take out our shoelace. One thing I noticed about Jay Collector's shoes, he never leaves his insoles inside, so there's nothing to take out. We're gonna take out the laces and put our shoe tree inside next. All prepped, for this cleaning, we're gonna be using Rejuvenator's Essential Shoe Cleaning Kit that comes with all 3 brushes, medium, soft, and stiff, solution, and towel. One thing I do want to point out is the material that we're working with. It's honestly not a delicate material, so we shouldn't have any issues about it changing to a different texture or fading. We're gonna start off by grabbing our bowl of water, our solution, and squirt 2 squirts of our highly concentrated solution. Again, like I mentioned, the shoe really isn't that bad. My main focus here is to get these white sock liners back to as white as possible, so we will be using a soft bristle brush. While we're at it, we're gonna give the rest of the shoe a good deep clean. Sock liners look great, they're back to white. Now we're gonna move on to the rest of the shoe using a soft bristle brush. All right, you guys, uppers are fully taken care of. Now we're gonna move on to the last part, which is these outsoles. For this, we'll be using our stiff bristle brush to take care of it. Good to go, you guys. This was an easy cleaning. Let's put these outside for a few hours so they can air dry. We are back, you guys. We got the shoe fully cleaned up and dried. Thanks to our essential shoe cleaning kit, we got the shoe properly cleaned up and setting out. Again, I know there's not a crazy big difference, but now I know the shoe's been properly cleaned and disinfected. Now we're gonna move on to these midsoles. Before we can start applying our new paint, we gotta remove the old paint. For this, we'll be using our heat gun and simply just peel off the paint using my finger. Usually I use acetone or a paint stripper, but for these are on the older side. I do not want to damage the midsole, and the paint's more of a latex type of paint where if I use acetone, it simply will just sit on the surface and it won't really do much to the actual paint. For the white, I'll simply just be scratching it off using my finger. Although removing all the old paint off the midsoles came out nice and clean, no damage done during the paint removal process. Now we're on to the taping. To start, there are different types of tapes you can use. You got Scotch Masking tape, blue painter's tape, electric tape, and a few others. For the most part, on all my projects, I love to use Scotch Masking tape. And for me, it works the best, it provides the most adhesion, and that's what I love about it. Blue painter's tape works awesome as well. The thing is, it's not as sticky, but it does work great on delicate uppers that contain delicate materials such as suede. Almost all the time I use Scotch Masking tape, even on suede uppers. The only time I stay away from this stuff is when I gotta work with the most fragile materials. That's when this stuff comes in handy. The only thing I wouldn't use this for is the rubber soles. Like I mentioned, it has very little adhesion, so it doesn't stick very well during the painting process. That's where this stuff is the best. The only problem is it does leave a lot of residue, but I'd rather have tape that leaves residue than tape that doesn't stick very well. So now that you have more information on the tape that I use, let's start taping. Usually on all the shoes that I work with, I like to start with the rubber soles first and then work my way up to the uppers. I like to start off in the small areas first and then work my way up to the bigger areas. It also always helps to have a fingernail to press down on the edges of the tape. It might go without saying, but you don't want to get any tape on the midsole itself, because after the paint job's good to go and it's time to rip off the tape's gonna rip off the paint job with it. You also don't want to leave little gaps all around on the midsole or uppers, because the paint will leak through and get all over where you don't want it to be. If you ever have issues with the tape not sticking very well to the rubber outsole, you can try using rubbing alcohol or acetone to go over the surface of it to remove anything that's sitting on the surface. If that doesn't help, you can heat it up with the heat gun, place the tape over it to help create better adhesion. Once the small details are out of the way, for the bigger areas of the outsole, I like to use bigger strips of the tape for a cleaner paint job, and it's a lot more efficient that way. What I like to do using the tape is to get as close as possible to the midsole edge and then wrap the rest of the tape. For me, the funnest part of the tape job is the back piece. With the stretch and pull method, you can get a clean tape job all around. Again, it's all about efficiency. Once the entire outsole has been fully taped up, you want to carefully inspect it to make sure there's no tape on the midsole or little gaps on the rubber sole to create any paint spillage. Once you feel good about it, you're gonna wanna use a heat gun to heat it all up and then use a small tool. For me, I like to use the small scissors, get a nice sharp point to press down on all the edges to make sure it's fully secured. All done taping up the outsole, now we're on to the top portion. For the uppers, the tape job is very critical. If we get any paint on the rubber, that's okay. We can simply rub it off using acetone or rubbing alcohol or simply scratch it off. But if I was to get any paint on the uppers, that's a different story. It can create permanent damage, especially on shoes that contain suede or nubuck, such as this shoe. In my experience, leather uppers are a lot easier to tape up. This tape adheres nicely to leather, but not so much to nubuck. For this, the heat gun's gonna be your best friend. You want to heat up the uppers nice enough to get it nice and warm, but not too much heat where it'll cause separation. You want to apply your tape, heat it up, tape, heat it up, tape, heat it up until it's all good to go. So far so good. When it comes to the uppers, I like to double stack my tape to make sure there's no little gaps. Again, it's very important to make sure there's no tape spillage on the uppers because they can create permanent damage. Now that the shoe's fully taped up, once again you want to go back and fully inspect it to make sure there's no little gaps exposed. If you see any color from the uppers, that means that spot is exposed and you got to go back and add some more tape. One of the best tips I could give you guys about these small scissors that I use, the sharp point allows me to go in and tuck the tape underneath the midsole just enough where it doesn't create any damage, but it fully protects it from any paint spillage. The last step we gotta do is tape up these air units. For this, I like to grab little pieces of tape and carefully place them around the air unit. I try my best to not get any of the tape on the midsole, but if you do, that's okay. Once you're done with the paint job, you can go back and touch it up. Tape job's good for now. Once we lay down our first color, I'll show you guys how to get the crispiest lines possible using some tape. Right now we're gonna focus laying down our white paint using Angelus and an angular brush. For the white paint, I like to use the paintbrush method. Airbrushing works great too, but I feel like it's less efficient that way and you waste more paint. That's just my opinion, but the airbrush works great using any other color. White paint looks solid, now we're on to the second part of the tape job. For this, what I like to do is use one piece of tape and use the stretch and pull method. I simply start over here, work my way all around. Once I get to this point, if I have to, I'll rip it and use the second piece of tape. But if it's looking really good, I'll just continue with the long piece of tape. This is how you get one consistent crispy line all around. I've seen the mistake where people use several different pieces of tape all around. It works, but the problem is you get inconsistent lines where it gets kind of jaggedy in some areas. Last tip about taping, you want to make sure your tape is nice and clean. That means you don't want any debris on the edges. For this, what you want to do, if you do have debris, is just grab a piece of tape and just clean it up. If it's not clean, this will mess with your lines. Second part of the tape job is complete. Right around this point, I had to break the strip in half. It was getting a little weird in that area. Then I went ahead and finished off the TJ using that same piece of tape. Like I mentioned, sometimes you have to cut that strip right around here or over here. Now we're on to the painting. For this, we'll be using Jacquard's colors. We went ahead and mixed up gold and fluorescent green. Really easy mix to create the perfect tone. Before we do that, we're gonna tape off the rest of the uppers. Green paint's laid down, the color match looks great, same thing with the crispy lines all around. The last thing we gotta do is go outside and spray some crystal clear Krylon finish to recreate the glossy look. PJ is complete. The last step we gotta do before we lace this shoe up is to hit up the sock liners to get rid of all the lint balls using our shaver. Alright guys, that is going to bring us to an end on this restoration on these Doernbecher Jordan 4s. This was an easy project. Anybody could have done this at home using the right rejuvenated products and the proper techniques. Remember you guys, the prep was critical to any project, not just a midsole repaint. Giving the tape job the proper amount of time and attention will yield the best results. I know this step could be really boring, long, and tedious, but if you take your time and do this part right, you can get the best results possible. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Vic Almighty. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.